Norman Osborn looks like that kind of goofy person who'd steal your wallet and then help you look for it. Like he's always just got some mischievous plot brewing in the kettle he calls his Goblin brain. And I mean, it's honestly quite crazy when you look at what he's done in past comics. Most notably, causing Gwen Stacy's death. Then there's that one time he gaslit Peter Parker into thinking he was just a clone of himself. And another time he even caused Mary Jane's miscarriage. Holy shit. And somehow through all these things, Peter Parker has never once killed him. He's a better man than me. But Norman Osborn only gets worse from here. Because after Norman Osborn took the credit for saving the world from a Skrull invasion, the United States government saw Norman as the hero and appointed him the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hammer. Upon receiving this job, Norman Osborn's ego inflated to new heights, taking Iron Man's armor as his own, and even created an Avengers unit comprised of villains. To top this off, S.H.I.E.L.D. also had tons of classified information now free for the Goober Goblin to sift through. And it'd lead Norman to discover the Infinity Gauntlet, along with the knowledge that Marvel's Illuminati had each of the Infinity Stones.
And I know they're not called Infinity Stones, they're actually called Infinity Gems, but I decided to call them Infinity Stones, so fuck off.
After Norman's discovery, he'd rally together all of Earth's villains to take down those who withheld the Infinity Stones. And one by one, each of the members fell to Norman's Dark Avengers, allowing Norman Osborn to claim the Infinity Stones for himself to become the Goblin King, destroying anyone who dares stand in his way. Cut to somewhere in the past, Norman's abusive father is mad that Norman used his father's tools, and a much younger Norman Osborn hides from his father in fear of his punishment, until his father is warped from time and space, into a battle between the real Avengers and the Dark Avengers. Captain America asks Norman's father, this random dude in the middle of the battlefield, what he's even doing here, only to be interrupted by Norman Osborn wielding the Infinity Gauntlet beside his fellow Dark Avengers. And during this whole fight, Norman's father can't believe that his son is in front of him. Meanwhile, the battlefield grows in chaos with villains and heroes dying left and right, until Norman Osborn uses the full might of the Infinity Gauntlet to kill all the heroes. Once over, Bullseye asks why Norman didn't do that earlier, but Norman replies that this was a show of force meant for his father to see, as Norman snaps his fingers for everything to disappear, transporting himself and his father into a pocket dimension where his father wants to know what the hell is going on. So Norman morphs into his younger self, exclaiming that the little frail boy he used to torment is now the ruler of all there is, was, and ever will be. But Norman's father still doesn't believe his weak and scared son could accomplish something of this caliber, so Norman, furious, snaps his fingers again, transporting the two of them to New York, now known as the throne city of the new Osborn Empire. And it's from Osborn City that him and his Dark Avengers rule over Earth. But Norman's father, appalled by his son's actions, says to Norman that the Osborn family has always strived to be inventors, but all Norman has created is a tyranny. However, Norman decides to show his father his greatest creation. And in a flash, they are sent to the moment before Gwen Stacy's death. Spider-Man attempts to save Gwen, but in the process, he snaps her neck when the web line reaches her, with Norman calling this moment a work of art. The moment he destroyed everything Peter Parker held dear. And like all great pieces, it must be appreciated. So Norman replays this moment over and over and repeatedly keeps Peter Parker in a loop where he can never save Gwen and is forced to hear the snap of her neck every time he catches her with his web line. Laughing maniacally, Norman relishes on the fact that he gets to watch his rival relive his greatest accomplishment forever. But Norman's father says that he's a monster and that he should have strangled him the moment he was born. But in the middle of his yelling, Norman snaps his fingers and turns his abusive father into a loving father. After this sudden change, his father starts to overwhelm Norman with love and the two teleport back to Osborn City. But when arriving back, Norman finds his team dead, along with his overtly supportive father drowning Norman with compliments, so much so it annoys him until Thanos appears, saying to Norman that no matter how much power he might have, no one will ever love him. And as Thanos asks Norman to hand over the Infinity Gauntlet, Norman morphs into the Goblin King. But before fighting, Thanos says that even if he uses the stones to change his father to make his father love him, Norman knows deep down it'll never be real, and that no amount of conquest can change that. But the Goblin King in response blasts Thanos with a goblin glider set to explode, yelling that he's wrong. And after Thanos would be reduced to ashes, Norman's father rushes over to Norman to tell him that he shouldn't listen to that mean man, because his father will always love him. But Norman pushes his father away, and demands to know why his father loves him so much, or why he's even proud of him. To which his father says back that he loves him because he's his son. But this doesn't satisfy Norman, because he thinks his father should only love him for his accomplishments. So in turn, Norman wipes his father out of of existence. And once his father would be wiped from reality, Norman would be at peace. Until realizing that he just wiped his own father from existence, meaning he'd never exist as well, as Norman desperately commands the gauntlet to bring his father back. But the gauntlet doesn't abide by the demands of someone who could never exist, leading Norman and the rest of the Marvel Universe to fade into nothingness. Because in all of Norman's glory, he was still just a scared boy inside, crying out for his daddy's love. I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and as always, I'll catch y'all on the flip side. The Queen Goblin does the goodie.